Drukhari Timeline. A Tale of Eternal Sin. The history of the Drukhari is one of unrelenting horror. Much of it is hidden in shadow, recorded only in allegory and fable by those races whose worlds they have ravaged. Records are kept, however. Tomes scribed in still living flesh, using bladed quills of bones. These histories divide the tales of Commorragh into 4 ages, ill-defined and overlapping though they are, each more redolent with cruelty and evil than the last. Millennium 18 to Millennium 31, the Age of Dark Genesis. The port of Commorragh. Commorragh establishes itself as the primary nodal port of the webway, growing larger with each passing decade. Built entirely within the labyrinthine dimension, and hence outside the jurisdiction of the Eldari councils, Commorragh acts as a magnet for those who wish to avoid attention. The Twilight Cults. Those leading the new paradigm of total self-indulgence rise in status and power, until they can secede entirely from the physical plane. They take up permanent residence in the webway, from which they can plumb the depths of decadence undisturbed by Puritans or weaklings. Over time, their sovereign estates grow into entire subrealms, many of which are powered by the energy of stolen suns. The solar systems plunged into darkness by the Eldari star theft wither and die in the freezing cold of the void, but the Eldari care not. Darkness rising. The depravity of the Eldari race plumbs terrible new depths. Cults of pleasure and pain flourish in the hidden reaches of the webway, and even the core worlds of Eldari society become obsessed with ever greater acts of excess. As the lines blur between sensation-seeking and outright evil, a new force stirs in the warp. Exodus. Sensing the end, portions of the Eldari race combine and modify their spaceships into craft worlds. Gigantic living vessels able to accommodate an entire planet's population. One by one, they begin to escape the corruption that plagues their empire. Hundreds of craft worlds sail into the sea of stars in search of the relative safety of the untrammeled void. The fall of the Eldari. A new god is born, collapsing the entire Eldari civilization. Slaanesh, the Dark Prince, whose birth screams tear out the heart of the Empire and leave pure chaos in its place. The shockwaves of the new god's apotheosis plunges a vast section of real space into the warp. Most of the Eldari craft worlds are destroyed in the psychic backlash. Only the Exodites, the Eldari of the farthest flung craft worlds, and those hidden in the subrealms of the webway survive. The Eldari race is shattered forever, in a single apocalyptic instant. Millennium 32 to Millennium 35. The rise of Vect. A legacy begins. A half-born slave, known at the time only as Vect, vows to rule the Dark City, even if it takes an eternity to do so. Vect founds the Cult of the Black Heart, the first organization to openly refer to themselves as Drukhari, or Dark Eldari. The 13 foundations of vengeance are laid down at this time, an intricate code of dishonor destined to spread through the society of the Dark City. The impact of Vect's rise to power will resonate through Commorragh's history for millennia to come. The War of the Sun and the Moon. The solar cults that control the Dark City's stolen suns rise in power and influence, declaring war upon the noble houses that would see Commorragh plunged into permanent night. An aerial war rages for centuries, but ultimately, the noble houses emerge victorious. Vect's Cult of the Black Heart transforms to become the first true cabal, and is instrumental in the final defeat of the cults of old during the Battle of the Seven Shrouds. Vect Ascendant. Asdrubal Vect launches a series of punishing raids against the Imperium's shipping lanes in the Desiderian Gulf. True to his plans, this triggers a punishing counterattack from 3 chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. Vect manipulates the invasion to cripple the power bases of the patrician Archons, and in the aftermath takes their place as ruler of High Commorragh. Shortly after, the Desiderian portal is forcibly collapsed, triggering a massive implosion and annihilating Imperial naval elements mustering for a second attack. Millennium 35 to Millennium 41, the Age of Pain. The Battle of Thaxar Rift. The Severed begin to plunder the region of space known as the Thaxar Rift. They find their efforts hindered by chaos-worshipping renegades who have a substantial presence in the region. Rather than face the renegades directly, Archon Ariensis ensures that his foes come to the attention of the Imperial Navy and Adeptus Astartes, and a grinding war ensues. The Severed haunt the edges of this conflict, tales of murderous ghosts and Xenos pirates spreading like wildfire in their wake while they test and study the Imperium's way of war. Eventually, the Imperium's forces are reduced to a shadow of their former might, resorting to selective exterminatus to annihilate what remains of their traitor foes. While the doomed world still smoulder, the Severed descend in full force. They annihilate the surviving Imperial Navy ships left behind to watch over Thaxarai space, before proceeding to plunder and pillage at will. Vect's Gift. Asdrubal Vect tricks his would-be rival Archon Kelethresh into opening a casket that has ostensibly been presented as a tithe. Held precariously in the collapsing field of the casket is the unstable essence of a black hole. Kelethresh's entire realm is plunged into a howling, yawning vortex. The Black Conquest of Yelindra. Yelindra of the Blackened Tier uses her preeminent grasp of the arts of Shemesh on an entire hive world. As the populace of Tibor III are withering into desiccated husks, Yelindra is granted a boon by Asdrubal Vect. She chooses to take a spire of her own in High Commorragh, forming the cult of Lemire, and training an army of courtesan warriors to further her works. The Plague of Glass. The noted Cormorite artisan Jalaxlar is fated for his incredibly lifelike black glass statues of Drukhari. His rivals soon discover that he is using an isolated viral helix to create his masterpieces from living victims. In the fight to control this deadly virus, it is accidentally released. Running rampant through several districts of the Dark City, the Plague of Glass is eventually contained and weaponized by the Hex. The Breaching. Vect causes the hidden portals that link each satellite realm of the webway to be revealed, forcing them open and building the Great Gates, huge edifices that are permanently guarded by Vect's elite garrisons. Over several millennia of violent strife, Commorragh expands into these once independent regions until they become integral to the Dark City. Only the realm of Shaddam remains autonomous. War in the Webway. A cabal of the Thousand Suns conducts a great ritual in the Webway, hoping to gain access to Commorragh. At the ritual's climax, hundreds of Drukhari pour from an invisible portal into their ranks, led by vaulting troops of Harlequins. Battle is joined as the Chaos Space Marines counterattack. The fabric of the webway is breached in the process, and the backlash strands the combatants in a shattered pocket reality with no way out. It is rumored in Commorragh that they fight there still, locked in an endless cycle of war and rebirth for the rest of time. The Tower of Flesh. The homunculi stronghold known as the Tower of Flesh is created, a living, breathing fortress made of the bodies of those who defied the Covenant of the 13 Scars. The renegade space marine Fabius Bile is tutored in the dark arts within its blood-slicked halls. Bile is accompanied to the Dark City by Lucius the Eternal, who is declared by his hosts, the witch cult of the Wrath Unbound, to be endlessly entertaining both in and out of the arena. The Blade of Vect. The sub-realm of Shaddam grows steadily in influence until Archon Eldar, the self-proclaimed Emperor of Shaddam, declares himself more worthy of rule than Asdrubal Vect. Vect publicly vows that all of Shaddam will feel the edge of his blade, much to the amusement of Eldari's famously well-funded and elite forces. 3 days later, a warp rift opens above the satellite realms, and a burning Imperial Navy battleship thunders downwards, plunging deep into the hidden city's heart before its warp drives detonate. The palace fortress of Eldar is torn apart. The warp rift allows demons to invade the city, and within a single week the devil-haunted realm of Shaddam is reduced to cinders. Vect is reported to have allowed himself a rare smile at the moment of its fall. The last act of Lord Korsht. Inquisitor Lord Korsht of the Ordo Xenos second-guesses the Drukhari raid upon the industrial world of Pandemon. The moment the Cabal of Immortality denied blink into existence above Des Moines' capital, they are all but annihilated in a thunderous firestorm. Korsht's absence is keenly felt as the post-action debrief, however, and the Inquisitor Lord's underground fortress complex is investigated. His remains are found, spread thinly upon every page of every occult tome in his library. Pandemon betrayed. The transdimensional satellite realm of Pandemon declares independence from Commorragh, instantly triggering a great war between Archon Ku of the Iron Thorn and the Cabal of the Black Heart. Ku is ready for Vect's attack, but not for the treason of his own daughter, who reveals herself as one of Vect's many courtesans. Civil war rages for weeks, but ultimately, the realm of Pandemon is delivered unto Vect. The Dancing Dead. The insane Archon, Sindrak, of the Last Hatred, launches a raid on the hive world of Tamantra's Folly. During fierce fighting between her Cabal forces and the Talon 8th Infantry, Archon Sindrak abducts the planet's tyrannical governor and his entire sadistic household. The luckless abductees are fitted with neural restraints, dressed in improbable and torturous finery, and instilled in life support tubes built in the ceiling of Archon Sindrak's grand ballroom. Trapped in an agonizing half-life, the nobles can be lowered down to the Archon's dance floor at will on brass armatures, their mere presence leaving the hall awash with an aura of pain and misery that the comrades find most refreshing. Needless to say, Sindrak's new toys are something of a coup, her guests delighting in dancing and frolicking with the whimpering humans amid the mocking laughter of their peers. The Plague of Becoming. A narcissist without equal, Archon Vane Kirak of the Black Myriad releases the doppelganger virus on the planet of Phlogiston 6. The transmorphic plague rewrites the biology of every living creature on the planet, forcing their features to reform into the likeness of their alien conqueror. Fear the Shadows. The Cabal of the Black Heart strike at the hive world of Lapradus, but are hurled back in disarray by the intervention of titans from the Legio Castigatum. Mere days later, Princeps Gendath, the author of Castigam's Victory, is murdered on his own bridge, hacked to shreds within his amniotic tank by hissing horrors that slither into being. The murky shapes disappear as suddenly as they struck, leaving only a half-frozen mosh of blood and shattered armor glass in their wake. Just beyond the door, word reaches Asdrubal Vect of a disturbance at Cain's Gate. Something has begun to pound slowly, rhythmically, impossibly on the other side. Vect stations 500 incubi to watch over the gate chamber as a delaying measure. He pays exorbitant sums to secure their discretion, while simultaneously ensuring all those hired hail from brotherhoods who have defied or hindered his machinations in the past. As further insurance, Vect deploys several of his most esoteric arcane weapons within the chamber itself. Ingenious failsafes that include temporal flux mines, the seventh shard, and a tri-prismatic dimensional mirror key to hurl anything reflected in its surface into the heart of a sun. The Harvest of Cho'Gath. The Cabal of the Broken Sigil begins a series of raids on the planet Cho'Gath, capturing the Ogden natives for the arenas. When Astro-Militaran regiments arrive to intervene, the conflict escalates into a planet-wide engagement. Though they fight hard, the soldiers of the Imperium are eventually defeated. The Crucible is thronged for many nights to come as the captured guardsmen are forced to fight the very Ogrins they were sent to save. The Enemy Beyond. The Incubi standing guard over Kane's Gate report new and disturbing developments to Asdrubal Vect. In accompaniment to the slow, relentless pounding, the gate has begun to vibrate at the microscopic level. Worse, those who stand too close to the portal report hearing whispered voices. Though he shows no outward signs of concern, Vect continues to devise new schemes. The Shadowhunt. The Cabal of the Baleful Gaze and Witch Cult of the Wrath Unbound crippled the infrastructure of the industrial world Durondas II, using systematic haywire bombing. The cult then lands great packs of chimera and clawed fiends, the beasts loping through darkened streets and tearing the planet's defenders to shreds. Buried in darkness, weapons fried and transportation crippled by the haywire bombs, the terrified Astro-Militarum and their civilian charges are forced to fall back time and time again. The hunted survivors are finally herded together in the Grand Templum district of Duronda's capital city. Here the Drukhari beastmasters loose their feral pets en masse, beginning a horrifying massacre that takes several long and bloody days to conclude, and from which no human emerges alive. The Panacea Wars. Vect sets his Archons a seemingly impossible task. Poison the Imperium of Man and bring proof of the deed. Lady Malus proves equal to the task. Through the Harlequins, she has learned that the tech priests of Verdigris 9 have recovered an STC codenamed the Panacea, a miracle cure that could save billions of human lives. Using hit-and-run raids, Malus's Cabal of the Poisoned Tongue lured the might of an Orc war down upon the heavily defended Forge World. The Orc fleet literally plows headlong into Verdigris 9, one massive ship after another slamming into the world's surface to cause untold destruction. As waves of Orcs disembark from their wrecked spacecraft, the planet's surviving defenders find themselves embroiled in a desperate war for survival. Malus and a Cabal swoop into the midst of the resultant havoc, cutting down anyone who stands between them and their prize. After prying the Panacea template from the gnarled fingers of the Orc Big Mech, who had stolen it before her, Malus returns to the Dark City, leaving Verdigris 9 to burn in her wake. Asdrubal Vect is reportedly impressed with this audacious raid, even as Malus is setting the Imperium's miracle cure atop a pedestal in her personal trophy hall. She receives an invitation from Vect to dine with him, by way of congratulations. The Nobility Resurgent. Descendants of the noble houses deposed during Vect's ascension, Archon Zelian, Kryalach, and Yelithian, attempt a coup. They successfully resurrect the ancient Archon El-Uriak, once Emperor of Shaddam, and the last individual to present a genuine challenge to Vect's supremacy. However, their schemes go horribly awry, leading the Dark City into a period of strife unlike any it has seen for thousands of years. As a result of their actions, a powerful demonic disjunction shakes Commorragh to its very foundation and forces Asdrubal Vect himself to take drastic action, lest his city slip into oblivion altogether. The Long Midnight. The last hatred ravages the hive world of Persia in a 6-cycle-long siege, using arcane technologies to bring pitch darkness to its principal hives and sending mandrakes and urguls into its confines. Many hive workers go mad with terror, but are taken back to Commorragh nonetheless. It is claimed that during the siege, Caradrach the Decapitator selects an unprecedented 7 worthy skulls for his macabre lair. The War of Dark Revelations. Tau forces, defending Vigos against the onrushing might of the Hive Fleet Kraken, make the fatal decision to ally themselves with Urian Rakath. Despite initial victories alongside their twisted allies, the Tau soon become alarmed by Rakath's demands that they engage in ever more costly cultural exchanges. They finally resolve to strike back when he transforms Tau warriors into monstrous grotesques and begins demanding a tribute of their sacred ethereals. The Tau muster their reserves from the world of Rubicon, yet when their blow falls, they find Rakath's fleet already gone, having left only holograms and sensor ghosts in its wake. Panic distress calls begin to issue from the defenseless Rubicon merely hours later. These gabbled reports tell of twisted, pale-fleshed invaders calling themselves the Prophets of Flesh, yet it is far too late for the woefully outmaneuvered Tau forces to respond, and they can only listen in anguish to the death cries of their world. The Bane of Commorragh. After being defeated by Lelith Hesperax in the Crucible, the Eldari known as Ivrain passes through the Veil of Death, only to be reborn as the emissary of Inyad, the god of the dead. Her violent apotheosis sees the alien combatants of the arena unleashed upon the spectators. In the ensuing anarchy, Vect recedes into the shadows. The gate opens. Ivrain's possession by the macabre god Inyad shakes the very fabric of the Dark City. Psychic energy bleeds uncontrollably from her, leading to a hyperspatial quake. Millions die in the first shockwave alone, and as the ripples continue, Cain's Gate, which had held fast for millennia, is torn violently open. For months, demonic entities surge through the breach, ravenously devouring Drukhari's souls as they press forward. Despite desperate attempts by Commorragh's nobles to stem the tide of demons, Vect is mysteriously absent. Only when warriors and slave armies of the Dark City are stretched to the breaking point against the invasion does the Supreme Overlord finally play his hand. Vect calls upon the incubi, citing pacts and debts of old, and the bodyguards of every Archon present in Commorragh are recalled from their duty in order to fight the demons. In battle after harrowing battle, the incubi, along with myriad other warriors, corral the demons into the subrealm containing the gaping hole that was Cain's Gate. The subrealm is then severed from the rest of Commorragh, plunging into a nether abyss which comes to be known as the Chasm of Woe. But the demons keep coming, rising from the massive abscess created within Commorragh. More of the Dark City's subdimensions are plunged into the chasm, and armies of warriors and slaves with them, in an attempt to keep the chaos entities from reaching the heart of Commorragh once more. Millennium 41. The Age of the Living Muse. The Feast Awaiting. The chaos incursion that savaged the Dark City is also felt throughout the galaxy as the Great Rift yawns open. A bow wave ripples throughout real space and the webway, shattering countless portals and gates that lead to and from Commorragh. Whole sections of the labyrinth dimension become dislocated, and through the fractures in the interspatial plane more demons come pouring inward. Meanwhile, the Imperium of Man is bisected by the Warp War, and one half, the Imperium Nihilus, is plunged into shadow, their ability to travel and communicate between systems all but lost. Each world stands isolated in the darkness as the servants of the Chaos Gods begin their campaigns of slaughter. Watchers in Commorragh see these worlds that are ripe for plunder, but must first contend with the cataclysms in the Webway and the Dark City. Those raids that are launched into the Imperium Nihilus, while brutal, are but a fraction of the Drukhari's terrifying potential. The assassination of Vect. With every incubi bodyguard within Commorragh deployed to stem the tide of demons, long-stifled rivalries between the Dark City's elites erupt into bloodshed. Assassinations become commonplace, and the threat of civil war looms ever closer. Yet right when the denizens of Commorragh seem set to tear themselves and their city to shreds, the impossible happens. Asdrubal Vect himself is murdered, cut down by mandrakes in service to an unknown master. Furthermore, every receptacle that contains a fragment of the Supreme Overlord's essence is destroyed simultaneously, ensuring that he cannot be regrown by the homunculi. The internecine conflicts that have ravaged the Dark City are quickly replaced by an uneasy stillness as every Commorragh assesses their alliances. If Vect can be killed, then who among the Drukhari can be assured of their own survival? The Great Wake. Harlequins of the Veiled Path prepare a wake for Vect to be held in the Nexus, the arena of the witch cult of the Cursed Blade. Many begin to suspect that it was the Cursed Blade who orchestrated the Supreme Overlord's demise. Others suspect the hand of Lady Maelys, for she and her cabal of the Poisoned Tongue have withdrawn from Commorragh into the fractured spars of the webway. Nonetheless, the Great Wake is attended in great numbers, both by those loyal to Vect and by those who come to gloat before beginning the war to divide up his territories. At the crescendo of the proceedings, the arena is saturated with potent airborne hallucinogens, and the Harlequins unleash their full fury on the Archons in attendance. Joining the fray on the side of the Veiled Path are the witches of the Cursed Blade, as well as the Prophets of Flesh and warriors from Vect's own cabal. The blood of Archons flows in great rivers, and amidst the screams of agony and terror, Asdrubal Vect rises from the center of the arena. His body perfect in form and his eyes filled with wrath. When the slaughter has finished, those Archons who remained faithful to Vect are resurrected by the Prophets of Flesh, as are some of his enemies, though they are made as twisted monstrosities whose only purpose is to serve the Supreme Overlord by their suffering. Having culled the upper echelons of Commorragh, Vect's position is rendered nigh unassailable, and he declares himself a living dark muse. The price of beauty. An enormous raid on hive-world Vortigern in the Imperium Nihilus returns to Commorragh with hundreds of thousands of captives. Whilst poring over the still-living specimens, homunculi of the Hex identify the slave population as being hosts to a gene-stealer cult. Hybrids are singled out and pumped full of growth accelerators, causing dormant mutations to blossom in their flesh. Once word spreads, a trend arises where the alien growths are harvested and grafted onto the bodies of high-paying Drukhari elites. The Vorgani, as these beautified individuals come to be known, form tight-knit cliques within high Commorragh society, in which they revel in their augmentations. Furthermore, they develop a collective obsession with Lithidia, the tyrannid-infested planet that has been drawn into the webway and still orbits the Dark City. The obsidian circlet. A dark, glassy substance is found during raids on worlds held by both Necrons and Adeptus Mechanicus. Within the caverns of the Undercity, it is soon discovered that this material can be used to repel demonic entities. After more raids are launched against Necron and Adeptus Mechanicus planets, the plundered Blackstone is a raid around the ever-deepening Chasm of Woe. The captives from these raids are also sent into the chasm, where their anguished deaths feed the souls of the Drukhari. Tortured Throne. Following the apparent abduction of several custodian guard, Inquisitors of the Ordo Xenos pursue the Coven of the Twisted Spiral to a wandering moon deep in the interstellar void. Hopes of catching their quarry soon vanish, but on the planet's barren surface, the Inquisitors find what appears to be a simulacrum of the Golden Throne, covered in blood and viscera. Just as they are sending word of their discovery, the Twisted Spiral appear and butcher the Imperial agents. United by hatred. A great number of the Azuyani of the Craft Worlds, along with many Harlequins and denizens of the Dark City, unite behind Yvraine as she seeks to destroy She Who Thirsts. It is the first time in millennia that such close military bonds have existed within the fractured Eldari race. Yet not all share the vision of the emissary of Inyad. Within his palatial spire in High Commorragh, the supreme overlord and living muse Asdrubal Vect makes plans to end the reborn prophet.